let me tell you about my 1901 reading project. My grandfather was born in 1901, and as such, I've always had sort of a fascination about this time. It's kind of a personal historical marker. My grandfather I met as as a child and got knew him kind of periodically. I live in Canada. He lived in Glasgow. My parents had emigrated, so I got to see him every once in a while. And I don't know, maybe as a young kid, like this is the oldest person I know, and is related to me. There's that thing of like a line. So for some reason, that era has always kind of had a little bit of fascination for me of kind of measuring time, of the changes of the world. And I kind of decided that I would like to start a project where I kind of focus in on the general area of 1901, kind of 10 years before, 10 years after, where I look at the books of the time, both kind of literature, nonfiction, also kind of pulp fiction. I guess I've started this already with this year with Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. So trying to kind of like pick cast as wide a net as possible of stuff that was published at the time. Well, at the same time as reading things of that time, Project Gutenberg being my friend, I'm also planning on finding nonfiction works to read about stuff. The Boer War is one that's definitely come up already. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle apparently was made Sir by being someone who was a booster for the British side of the Boer War. And I know that is in itself. I think that's where we get concentration camps. So some interesting stuff to look at there. 1901 is also the year that Queen Victoria died. There's that as well. It's one of those turning points of going from the 19th century and very much kind of 19th century thought and thinking into what's going to be the 20th century, which so yeah, there's a real shift there, and I'm kind of fascinated with that shift. And I mean, this will definitely be one of these things of looking how people thought and conceived, and like what their world was like at that time. British Empire still going strong, fairly strong, and then you know separating that being two world wars, um, uh, shifting from colonization to of the British to the empire of the Americans, to whatever's going to be happening next. But just kind of trying to get all that in there, and like a lot of the attitudes, a lot of um, the science, junk science, the echoes that reverberate. Um, I don't know how. It's one of these like this is like seriously. This is like a project which isn't just like, oh, I'm going to do this year. This is one of these like, okay, I'm making kind of a folder for myself of, hey, you're interested in it's like try and look out for stuff around 1901. Gather stuff. Look for the connections. Look for, oh, this came up in this work. Go investigate this kind of that kind of idea. I love that, the connections thing. The other kind of odd inspiration that I've thought about was there is what I remember as a pretty schmaltzy romantic time travel movie called Somewhere in Time, starring Christopher Reeves and Jane Seymour, or Superman and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, where my memories of it is of the Christopher Reeve character basically kind of self-hypnotizing himself, surrounding himself in stuff of a past era, and traveling back in time just through kind of sheer kind of force of will. That is really complete kind of fantasy nonsense. But there's something in there that, like, I'm not trying to lose myself in another era. I'm not like nostalgic for it. In some ways, I very much expect that I'm going to rub up against it uncomfortably. But that's sort of the thing that interests me. I like that when I bump into something that like really clangs against my modern sensibilities. I like that. I like that in a thing. Some people find that that's me criticizing that time, and I mean, I think there's some things that are, you know, horrible racism, sexism, homophobia, and all that. That's valid. That's perfectly valid ways for me to react to something as a modern reader. I It's interesting. You look at older books and you look at them on something like Goodreads, and there's people like 1 star DNF. This is a racist piece of shit, and it's like, you know what? That is a valid reaction. I would not take that away from people. Um, I also probably think, yeah, this is horribly racist. And it's like parsing out, like, I mean, we have a whole bunch of beliefs now that are not going to age well. That's just guaranteed. I was struck by how, you go forward just 10 years and how radically people comport themselves about women, about making sexist remarks, stuff like that. How much that has changed in just the space of 10 years versus stuff I'm going to encounter from 120 plus years ago. But there's also just that, like, things aren't permanent. Things change. Things are always changing, and I find that exciting. I find that exciting. All right, so as always, I'm going on too long, but that is my 1901 reading project. Maybe I'll put down below kind of just general stuff that I've collected so far. It's not like a reading list. It's more like, oh, these are things I could check out, see which things interest me, see which things bore the hell out of me, and go from there. And go from there on it. All right, more videos later.